Astrology. I hope you're all doing well today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming to another video. Today I have your forecast for the week of October 5th through October 11th. This week is a little bit light on the astrology, but we're kind of revving up. And we're also kind of in the middle of some things that started last week, such as the Mars square Saturn aspect. So this is not necessarily an easy week, but we're not really introducing any new energy this week. All right, so diving into the astrology of this week, first off, on October 7th, which is the Wednesday, we have Mercury opposite Uranus. So Mercury is in Scorpio, it's gonna go retrograde pretty soon, opposite Uranus in Taurus. And so anytime Uranus is involved in an aspect, we have upheavals, revolutions, kind of radical changes, and it's not a smooth transition. It's like a jarring, like jolt to action, like things are going to get changed up. And so this day can indicate a sudden change in the way that messages are sent or received, or some sort of conflict regarding the way that you are expressing yourself or learning. For example, this could include email delays, updating your computer. It could be as minor as just like finally updating your phone and not hitting ignore update again. It could also be like switching up your writing style or the way that you speak, anywhere between those extremes. And then on Friday the 9th, we have Mars square Pluto, and this is not really an easy aspect. It's not really a preferable aspect. Mars square Saturn is kind of the big one that we've been watching this year. Mars being in Aries, and then of course we have Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter over in Capricorn making a 90-degree angle. And Mars is really debilitated right now. Even though Mars is in his home sign of Aries, Mars only goes retrograde once every 2 years. Mars retrograde is challenging because it's not an aspect we're normally used to. Mars is malefic, it's already challenging as is, and then when it goes retrograde. But yeah, Mars retrograde is just generally challenging because Mars wants to move forward, it wants to be aggressive, it wants to act, it wants to instigate, but when it's retrograde, everything is slower and more challenging. Obviously, that's what retrograde means. But with everything going on in Capricorn, making that square, there's an additional level of challenge with Mars retrograde. And with Mars squaring Pluto, the kind of stalled nature of Mars, like if you think of a car stalling, is brought to a destructive level by Pluto, because Pluto wants to act and change through transformation and death and rebirth and all of that. And Mars just wants any action. Mars doesn't care if it's destructive or constructive. And so this day there may be this kind of desire to Phoebe. So yeah, with Mars and Pluto squaring up against each other, Mars needs to act and Pluto wants to destroy, and it's kind of like egging on Mars, like, come on, send that risky text, or like do that thing that like may not actually be helpful but feels cathartic in the moment. I feel like there's a lot of catharsis on this day, and not necessarily in a like long-lasting productive way, more in like a this feels good and I just need to let this energy out right now, and there may be fallout, there may be backlash, but like I need to get it out. So yeah, watch out for Friday. I feel like that's going to be the most challenging day this week because Mars is so debilitated. And it's kind of going up against all the planets in Capricorn right now. And Pluto is the most destructive. And even though Mars and Saturn is kind of like the ongoing aspect that everyone's talking about, Saturn constrains versus Pluto has this kind of like almost desire to kind of start trouble by destroying things. Like think like the asshole cat who like knocks things off. Pluto's like the little devil on the shoulder, like knock that off, knock that off. So I feel like that's the energy of this Friday. So try and keep your cool if you can, and don't be destructive or hurtful just to be destructive or hurtful, I guess. And then on Saturday the 10th, we have Venus trine Uranus. Venus is in the very early degrees of Virgo right now. Uranus is in Taurus, of course. And so this day there's kind of a desire for change in relationships, but in a very positive way. Trines are positive aspects, so this is not going to be like a challenging, like, relationships are shifting and you're not like autonomous in it, like you don't have control. This is more like if you want to change the pace of your relationship, you can. If you want to try something new in your relationships, you can. And the change that Uranus brings is not inherently negative or positive. It's not a benefic or a malefic because it's not a traditional planet. But there's kind of just this desire to switch things up And I feel like it's in more of like a fun and playful way rather than in like a destructive or harmful way. So if you're feeling like changing things up in the relationship or financial aspect of your life, Saturday's the day to do it. And then finally on Sunday the 11th, we have the sun making a square to Jupiter. And while this aspect in and of itself is not ideal, but not necessarily like the most challenging either, it does kind of mark the beginning of the sun making a square to all the planets in Capricorn. It's going to happen in the next like 8 days. I think that it happens like the 11th and then the 19th and then like one other in the middle. Basically, with everything going on in Capricorn, like the grand trio over there of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, it's kind of a destructive, debilitated energy. Jupiter being the one who's debilitated, obviously Saturn does very well in Capricorn, but the sun is not doing well in Libra, and so the energy of these two planets, it's kind of like wanting to grow and wanting to expand the self, but not having the tools to do it. It's kind of like having these good ideas, but lacking the resources to actually get them up and off the ground. So while this day, I don't think you're gonna like suffer in any way or like your luck's not gonna like completely shrink away, this might be a day to kind of check how realistic things are. Jupiter loves to be big and bold and kind of just expand without boundaries. And the sun is about the self. The sun wants to do things that benefit the self. And so this day, I feel like you're going to kind of want to expand your horizons in some way. Just make sure that you actually have the resources for it. And yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily start anything on this day, but it's not a super harmful aspect. So yeah, that's the astrology of this week. Like I said, there's nothing too exciting or groundbreaking this week. The sun opposite Mars and then both of those squaring everything in Capricorn, that's kind of stealing the show right now. So anything this week is just like a mild seasoning on top, but it doesn't change the flavor of the dish. It's just another layer to everything going on in the sky. So let's do some oracle cards now so we can get some advice and words of wisdom for the week ahead. All right, I pulled the cards a little bit differently this week. I shuffled all of them out at once, so we'll just go through them instead of like shuffling in between. So the first card we have is Listen Quietly. And I love this with all of the Mars energy that's happening right now. We're just coming off of the energy of a full moon in Aries conjunct Mars. Things are kind of intense right now. Tensions are high. And there's just this kind of like angry need to do things. And when you're doing and when you're talking, you're not listening. And yeah, I think this is a really valuable lesson. I wish the president was watching this video so he could hear this for the next debate. And even though this says listen quietly, I'm kind of adopting some of the skills of active listening as well, which is just like sitting quietly, paying attention and being fully present, not thinking like, what am I gonna have for dinner tonight? Or what am I gonna say next? Or like, oh, that reminds me of this, and kind of getting on a trail or a different story in your mind. And I feel like this obviously relates to conversations, and this is something that you should always be doing when you're talking to other people. But at the same time, I think this is also just kind of generally, like right now, the universe, as like cheesy and woo as it sounds, like there are a lot of lessons to be learned right now. Whenever we have tough aspects in the sky, that friction like produces knowledge and produces lessons. And so right now, I feel like if you take some time to meditate and just kind of sit in nature and just kind of be outside and listen to the silence even, I feel like there's a lot of lessons to be learned in there. So listen quietly. And then our next card is Notice Predictable Rhythms. I feel like when you listen quietly, you're more aware of the rhythms that happen around you. Yeah, I think that this is really helpful. For me, I track my rhythms based on the moon. And I can tell like when a new moon is coming up, my energy is much lower. When a full moon is coming up, I feel this like need to act. And so watch for rhythms in your life. This can even be on a day-to-day or hourly basis of like noticing that like where your energy peaks and lows are during the day and maybe working with those. It's like, if you know you always get a little bit lethargic after lunchtime, don't plan an important work call then. Or if you are most productive in the morning, try and crank out some of your schoolwork then. So noticing rhythms in your life can help you use your time more effectively. Yeah, so just observe. I feel like both of these are really just telling you to sit back and observe rather than act, which is a very Mars retrograde message of stop trying to do things just to do them, and instead can you just like sit back for a minute and see what happens when you watch the world around you. And then our last card is clarity of mind, which is perfect with these because when you listen quietly, when you sit in silence and you observe the world around you by noticing rhythms and noticing patterns and all of that. Sorry, my scarf keeps falling off. But when you sit quietly and watch things happening around you, I feel like you get this clarity of mind and you're able to see things as they are rather than the way you want them to be. So I can't remember if I talked about this in last week's forecast or if it was in one of the readings for my October predictions, like my pick a card video that I posted a couple days ago. But the Buddhists believe that suffering comes from wishing things were different than the way that they are. And so I feel like if you get clarity of mind and again, noticing the predictable rhythms and listening quietly, you'll get a better sense of the world, and it reduces suffering because you're not wishing things different than they are, and you just kind of get this clarity in the sense of like, this is the way things are. And this isn't, I'm not saying like become passive and blindly accept what's happening in the world, rather sitting and observing and acknowledging. Sometimes I think people think that the word accepting means like allowing it or giving it permission to exist as it is. Rather, I just want you to be aware of the world and kind of conscious of the way things are through clarity of mind. Yeah, so basically, my dear viewers, the lessons of this week are notice your predictable rhythms, listen quietly, and that will lead you to clarity of mind. See things the way that they are, not the way that you wish them to be. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of me, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at AstroAbs. I don't post on there very much, but you can still follow me. And I've started posting daily tarot card pulls on TikTok. I believe that's also at AstroAbs, but if it's not, I'll put the actual name on the screen. And yeah. Please leave a like and a comment and subscribe and all of that good stuff. And I will see you guys later. Bye!